On this week's travel show,
It took a lot of courage for a black family to get in their car and just hit the open road.
we talk to the African Americans whose old travel stories helped shape a Hollywood film.
Dignity always prevails.
We've got another incredible journey for you as two friends take on a risky rafting challenge in Pakistan.
This feels quite serious now. I haven't seen Ed for almost 2.5 hours.
And I'm here in Morocco to meet the donkeys who deserve a good rest. This one's called Daisy, and I think we're friends now. Hello and welcome to the travel show with me, Adia Depitan. This week I'm here in beautiful Morocco. It looks stunning, doesn't it? And later on in the show, you'll find out why I'm hanging out with these dudes. But first,
I am not a medical doctor. I'm a musician. I'm about to embark on a concert tour in the Deep South. What other experience do you have?
if you're a big film fan, then you'll probably know that earlier this week, the Oscar nominations were announced.
You and the Deep South, there's gonna be problems.
In the running this year is a film called Green Book, which is centered around a guide that African Americans used in the days of segregation to make their travels around the USA safer and easier.
It's perfect, Tony.
A while back, we met some of the people who can remember how their family used that guide.
Traveling on the road, if you were black during this time, you were taking your life in your hands. We estimate that there were over 10,000 sundown towns. Sundown towns were all white towns. They could have a sign at the border saying they would run out all of the black people. It took a lot of courage for a black family to get in their car and just hit the open road, which is something I think in America we take for granted.
They call them Jim Crow laws, and those laws made it illegal for people of color to eat in restaurants, to stay in hotels, to use bathrooms. They had separate bathrooms. Some places you couldn't walk on the sidewalk with a white person. You had to get off the sidewalk and walk in the street.
The Green Book was a historic travel guide that was published for black people during the Jim Crow era. It was more than just gas, food, and lodging. There was everything from anything you might need on the road, whether it was like a doctor or churches or department stores, drugstores, there were golf courses. Disneyland was listed in the Green Book. It was a pretty major guide. By the 1960s, we estimate it had been sold to over 2 million people.
My mother's from Kansas, my father's from North Carolina, so we travel mainly back and forth to those places. My parents would use the Green Book to plan places where we might stop. Without it, it would have been far more difficult, if not practically impossible. Because you can pack, people used to pack food, but for us to get to Kansas, we have to pack food that's gonna last us for 2 or 3 days. Where are you gonna stay?
My grandmother owned the only hotel in Charlottesville, Virginia that black people could stay in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. The Green Book listing was very important to the business because people traveling through the South, and even in places in the North, really relied on that book to figure out where they were going to stop. The inn was just a fantastic, vibrant place. Many entertainers, famous entertainers and figures would come to the university And if they were African American, they had to stay at my grandmother's place. One of the things that I am very proud of is this picture of of Louis Armstrong that he autographed to my grandmother. It's an artifact in our family that I hope will be passed down from generation to generation. In the early 60s, when desegregation began, most people, when they had a choice of staying in the Holiday Inn down the street or the Motel 6 or whatever, decided they'd rather stay there. For many black people, it was a point of pride to be able to go where they had been denied access before.
Well, I stumbled on the Green Book by accident. I was writing a book on Route 66 and found it was at a Route 66 exhibit, and there was a Green Book like under glass and tucked away in a corner. When I first put my hands on a Green Book, it was magical. It's this feeling of like you too can enjoy America. It was a very hopeful, positive guide. Well, I'm in New York because I am a scholar in residence at the Schoenberg Center for Black Research, and it's amazing because they have the largest collection of Green Books in the world. And I've scouted about 1,600 Green Book sites so far. And of those, less than a quarter are still standing. But I'm also working with city planners to have them recognize these sites as culturally significant and historic sites. The Green Book was an innovative and resourceful solution to a horrific problem.
For me, it's a source of pride that African Americans, that black people were resilient. They were resourceful. I think our ancestors would be proud of the Green Book, that we survived and that we came up with these tools.
They had a lot of courage, a lot of drive, and we're not going to be denied. I think that those lessons should be a comfort to people facing today's America.
Up next, I bet the last time you were on holiday and asked for ice in your drink, you didn't give a second thought to where the ice came from. Well, researchers have in London. They've uncovered how the capital kept cool over 200 years ago.
This is an amazing historical find. Historic London is very fascinating, and to understand and to discover this is quite special.
It was known more or less that it was here. It wasn't quite certain as to whereabouts it was. It was built in the 1780s by a fellow called Samuel Dash. Originally, the ice well was used to store ice sourced locally, and that would have come from rivers and canals, and it was pretty disgusting. There was whatever you can imagine was floating in a river or canal could have easily ended up in this ice house. But in the 1820s, William Leftwich took over the ice well. He imported his ice from Norway, and it was much better quality ice from the frozen lakes in Norway.
Ice was brought over and transported up the Regent's Canal to here, where it was then installed, and then eventually it was sold off to the local landowners who wanted to come and buy a bit of ice. Before the days of refrigerators as we know them, it was used for medical use. People would come along and just buy a small portion. It would go out through the top that we see up above us.
You can just about see there's a scar here on the wall. There's another scar there, and we think that there were two doors here, probably insulated, maybe timber wall doors clad with leather and stuffed with straw perhaps to insulate them. If there was enough ice in there, it retained its temperature all year round. I think the tube is something like 8 meters below. It is quite incredible that it hasn't been interrupted by the tube, which we can hear going past now, yeah.
Stay with us here on The Travel Show. We're headed to northern Pakistan for an incredible rafting journey down the spectacular Hunza Valley. And did someone say baby donkeys?
They're really affectionate. Hey.
Now we're off to the northernmost region of Pakistan. Stunning, but not a place that's on everyone's travel itinerary. It's here on the border with China that we're heading for our next incredible journey.
I'm John Ryder.
And I'm Edmund Lebrun.
And in 2018, we set out to raft down the length of the Hunza Valley in northern Pakistan. And as far as we can tell, nobody's done this before.
The river passes through a really interesting part of Pakistan, right up near the border of China.
It's a very ancient trade corridor that passes north to south, the old Silk Road, combination of mountains, people, history, culture. It's a fascinating place.
When we set out, it was late in the day. We were a bit distracted because we had people from the local police force along the banks watching us.
Thanks again for all your help. I think we go through the water now.
And the water at this point, it's going pretty swiftly. And so we nudged our boats out and just managed to keep a straight face without too much screaming. We were there on a river which supposedly hadn't been rafted before.
That feeling of independence was just fantastic. I think that travelling by raft, you slow down. You see things that you might not see otherwise. And there were moments when, on the river, we were caught between the old Silk Road footpath that's now crumbling into the river on the one side, and then on the other, the Karakoram Highway. And so you're sort of, in a weird way, you're caught between times.
The trouble with rafting a river for the first time is that you really have to scout every 100 metres because you really don't know what's around the corner.
There were many moments going down the river where we encountered sections that we knew that we couldn't navigate.
Well, we actually found out that they were too difficult to raft the hard way.
That was quite scary, actually. Once it's upturned, there was nothing for him to catch hold of.
I lost my raft, just went all the way downriver, sped away.
Been tipped out of the boat.
And the currents were doing really weird things. Okay, I'm gonna go chase it.
So as soon as I set off in John's raft in pursuit of my own, I realised that it was a bad decision. The water was getting rougher, and sure enough, I hit a corner.
Oh.
Losing the second raft. So I managed to swim to the bank and suddenly assess the situation. And there we are, northern Pakistan. We've lost both our rafts, all our bags. I then didn't know where John was.
Okay, this feels quite serious now. I haven't seen Ed for almost 2.5 hours. I don't know what condition he's in. So I've just got to the road. I've got, what's your name again? Fayazuddin is helping me, but there's no sign of John.
People often assume that, we felt, was there a security concern there? And actually, security was the furthest things from our mind. The key is always doing research before you go, because some areas are incredibly dangerous. And just 5 kilometers away, it's completely safe. So after I'd lost my raft, I didn't find John for 5 hours.
Yeah, very tired John on the other side of the river.
We found the rafts eventually. It took us, I think it was about 4 days in total.
Everyone we spoke to offered to walk up and down the river or offered their car. It was really quite overwhelming, the level of generosity that we received.
Did we achieve what we had set out to achieve? Yes, in a sense. We made it down to Gilgit from the Chinese border alive. That feels like a pretty big sense of achievement to us. Did we raft the whole length? No, we didn't. We walked sections. We cycled along sections to scout ahead. So the whole trip was a real patchwork of different means of transport.
You know, rafts are completely unsuitable for going on rivers like this. And if we were really serious, we would do it in a completely different sort of boat. But what the rafts did give us was this sense of adventure. And through that, we actually uncovered a side to Pakistan which we really never see in the news.
Jonathan Ryder and Edmund Lebrun there on their trip down the Hunza Valley in northern Pakistan. And if you're inspired to embark on your own incredible journey, don't forget to do your research and check your government's foreign travel advice before you head off. Well, to finish off this week, I'm back here in Morocco, where you'll find animals working across the country, transporting goods and tourists too. Donkeys, mules and horses are a much cheaper alternative to vehicles, and in some cases the only option in the mountains or the narrow lanes in the Medinas. But they aren't always looked after. Morocco has no national animal welfare legislation. Some local regulations exist, particularly in and around Marrakesh, that require working animals in the tourist trade to have health checks every 4 to 6 months. Just outside the Medina, there is a free animal drop-in clinic run by Spana, which tourists can also visit.
Morning. Hi, good morning. Welcome in Spana.
Spana is a global animal welfare charity with clinics and mobile centres across Morocco. Trying to eat my jacket, you can't have it.
This place is very known in Marrakesh and around Marrakesh. People are coming far from 50 kilometers away from here.
So it's like a walk-in clinic?
Yeah.
You can just arrive.
In Morocco, in the 5 clinics, we sell around 24,000 animals a year. Donkeys, mules and horses. But in Marrakesh, we sell more than 15,000 here. A year.
So it's free for them to come?
It's free. All the treatments are free. Yeah.
Wow.
They're free.
This is so cute. We've got a baby donkey with its mum. So cute, you want to hug it. It's quite shy though. They also work closely with local authorities to make sure the Kalesh owners and their horses comply with the local laws. So there are 2 horses over there, and once they're given the A-OK health-wise, they're given the yellow tag, which is put on their leg. One of the horses is getting checked over because apparently it's got a bit of a respiratory problem, but that one's okay, and it's going to get its yellow tag and its thumbs up for health. Oh, what's happened there? Got another animal coming in, it looks like a dog that's injured. With a constant flow of patients, the centre relies on the help of volunteer vets. Is she all right to touch?
Yeah, she's friendly.
Not all the animals recover well enough to work again. Others leave babies behind, which leads me to the next place I'm going to visit. Jargia Mule and Donkey Refuge lies in the foothills of the Atlas Mountains, not far from Marrakesh. It's where donkeys go to retire. It's also an orphanage and a care centre for working equines. They're really affectionate. Hey! The refuge centre was established by British couple Susan Machin and Charles Hanton 10 years ago. They'd come to Morocco to retire.
So we lived in our villa and we didn't know what we were going to do. And then over a period of a few months, a few donkeys came for shelter and I became very interested in them.
So were you donkey fans before you came here, or?
No, I said we were lawyers.
Well, you could be a lawyer and like donkeys.
No, we didn't have time for donkeys.
Tell me, how do visitors find out about this place?
Social media.
That good old thing.
That good old thing. What tourists say is they've stayed in Marrakesh, they love Morocco, but what upsets them is seeing the donkeys working. Westerners aren't used to seeing donkeys working anymore. And they take a view about Morocco, that Morocco is cruel to its animals, which isn't true. Morocco still uses working animals, but didn't know what to do with them at the end of their life. They come here.
The couple are using their pensions to run the place. They don't charge an entrance fee, and guests are free to roam and play with the animals. It's feeding time for the donkeys, and yeah, they're chowing down. They were a bit hangry before, and I suppose after the hard life that these donkeys have led, this is probably a really nice respite. Over the years, the sanctuary has grown and today is home to around 30 donkeys and mules. Adoption programs are in place too, if visitors want to sponsor an animal. So Jar Jar Refuge gives all the donkeys and the mules that arrive here a name so they can bond with the workers and the visitors. And this one's called Daisy, and I think we're friends now. Hello, Daisy. Hello. It's just chilling out. Okay, well, that's it for this week on The Travel Show. Join us next week when Lucy prepares to go sub-zero in the French Alps.
Well, my time to take my icy plunge has come. I'm not as nervous as I thought, but I haven't touched the water yet, so I honestly have no idea what to expect.
Find out how she got on with her first attempt at ice diving. And don't forget, you can follow all our adventures in real time on the road by going to our social media feeds. But for now, from me, Adia Depitan, and all the Travel Show team here in stunning Morocco, it's Basalama.